Welcome to the Sisters of the Shire Podcast. I'm Abby, and together with my co-host Ashley, we are here to share and discuss all things Tolkien. This season, we are on the Book of the Unfinished Tales.
Whether you're a devoted scholar of all Tolkien lore, or maybe you just have read this book before like me.
Or maybe you've read some of Tolkien's other books and are just learning about this particular story for the first time like me. Our podcast promises a fellowship of lively banter and insightful discussions through the heart of Tolkien's realm.
Are you ready to learn all about the unfinished tales?
Woo!
Let's go!
Let's go!
How are you today, Abby?
Well, let's hope that my darn computer and microphone are nice to us this episode. I apologize, everyone, if poor Ashley has to edit me and I sound like a robot for this. You
don't sound like a robot. You'll just sound like you're shouting from really far away, but like randomly things are going to be like, hey, what are you doing over there? That's what it's going to sound.
Oh, I was hoping it was going to sound like when they insert words like when you fill in the blanks.
Or that.
We are very glad to meet you. Insert name here, customer.
I would never do that to you, Abby.
Oh, man. No, I'm good. Hopefully like I said, hopefully my computer isn't going to be a jerk this episode. And I apologize again for the sniffing and snorfling that I will be doing during this beautiful spring pollen day.
So we are recording on a weekend because my work schedule is still a little crazy. So I have an Lizzie. I was going to say I have an Abby in the background. I do. I have a Lizzie in the background too. But I have a Lizzie also in the background. So if you hear any ruffling, all of a sudden urgent whispering, loud coloring that she's notorious for, I apologize. This is the mom
I'm coloring so loud. It's me in the background.
So, how much do you remember of last week?
I remember that I just re-listened to the episode because I was sewing. I'm in a quilt club with a bunch of old ladies, and so I was sewing what I needed to sew for quilt club. I was listening to podcasts, and I was listening to ours. By the way, don't let me forget to tell you, I found an amazing podcast that I think you really like, but we don't talk about it on here, but I will keep going.
Does it have to
anyway,
merger?
It has to do with cool facts about weird things. Like I learned about how the mafia became to be the mafia. It was awesome.
You cut out through that whole thing. You learned about how is awesome.
I learned about mystery.
I know.
I'll
never know.
I learned about how the mafia became the mafia. No, still a mystery.
But I also heard moth in there too, which makes the mystery even better.
No.
Something about a moth. It's like before we started recording, you were trying to guess what movie Oakley was wanting to watch just from what sounded like the F word and Unny. We figured out. You figured out that it was Zootopia. I was guessing Robin Hood, but you know. So I'm trying to work with you here, buddy. Something about a moth and something you didn't know before. Yeah, I got nothing.
No, the mafia. The mafia.
I don't know why that makes it even more.
You would have been so lost forever.
So not a moth as in like Gandalf's best friends. The mafia, like the mob, like hitmen and casinos and things. Okay. Very different.
Yes. Yes.
Okay, so why were you learning about the mafia? I have so many questions now.
It was a podcast I found, and I want to share it with you because I caught up on our podcast. I was listening to ours, and it was
Uh-huh.
caught up to the latest episode, and so it said maybe you'll be interested in this podcast.
So you went from Sisters of the Shire to the mafia? What hidden subliminal messages are we sending out? We're in a secret cool club, and we'll kill you if we don't like you. It's about accurate.
Anyway, I was trying to say, don't let me forget to tell you about it because I think you'd actually like that podcast. Anyway, okay. I was just listening to our latest episode, so I kind of have it fresh on the brain.
Okay. So you can do the whole recap all on your own. Okay. Let's do it.
So they were on their cool road trip. They started their cool road trip, and Tuor was like, well, first we learned about, like, there was a lot of maps this last episode, and we learned that they went the long way around. They could have gone a very short distance to get to where they needed to go, but they decided to go a very long roundabout way to get there.
Not necessarily. I think you're missing something that Olmo could have sent Tuor to Gondolin when he was in his cave. And that would have been a lot shorter. But from Nevrast or Vinyamar, whatever, to Gondolin, they're going on the most direct path. They are. Yeah. But Tuor doesn't know that. Yeah. He has no idea what's happening.
It's just when you look at the map of where he started and where he ended, it's like, oh, buddy, you could have. That was a long roundabout way to get there. But he had to see Olmo. He had to go see the beach. He had to go meet Voronwe and stuff like that. But so we learned more about Voronwe and how him and Tuor, I know, that poor boy. Him and Tuor's life, in the sense of like when they started becoming, like, following their destiny, I would say, in a kind of weird way. Like, they're like, I need to do this for the purpose of my life. Both Voronwe and Tuor have very similar journeys, I would say. The one difference is Voronwe volunteered, kind of was told, like, hey, you need to go towards the sea because we're loading people on ships to go try to get to Valinor. And Voronwe's like, okay, I'll try. Like, I'm gonna, I have ship people blood in my veins.
Ship people blood. Okay.
It's in my blood.
I'm sure the Teleri would not be offended at all to hear you say that.
So he was supposed
Kieran just like rolled his eyes at you right now.
What? You told me that Voronwe like had that had relatives that were like sailors and stuff, right?
Sure, I did ship people blood. It's just that's how I'll always think of
what the word for sailor was, and I forgot what the word for sailor was, so I just said ship people.
I mean, that's very what's the word? Modern of you. They're not shipmen, they're not seamen. Because what if there was women? I mean, that's very, politically correct of you. I'm so proud. That's what Tolkien would have wanted.
He's like, that's right, they are ship people. Ship people. So he was supposed to go to the coast to get on a boat to try to get to Valinor to have them help them out against the war of Morgoth and everything. And he kind of knew. We never really went over about like if Voronwe knew it was a suicide mission or if he had like actual faith of like, oh, it's gonna work, we're gonna make it, or he was kind of like, okay, like.
Well, and another thing I was thinking about too is like there wasn't an explanation of what the plan was once, if and when they got to Valinor. Or were they supposed to come back? Or is it just expected that, oh yeah, Valinor is an awesome place, and for you risking your life, getting there, you get to stay there. I'm sure they'll let you. So, I mean, maybe they just thought, maybe they just stayed there, but let's just keep sending people just in case the message isn't received. So,
do you think also too,
yeah, it's hard to know whether or not Voronwe knew
if they made it to Valinor? They're like, okay, what's the plan? And he's like, I actually haven't thought it through this far. I don't know. I honestly didn't think we were
supposed to get here. My instructions, I don't have my instructions.
Yeah. So he was supposed to go, but he got sidetracked because he found a beautiful place that was just so beautiful that he could not leave. And he was late to get to the coast and the ships and everything, which is very similar to Tuor's story of finding a beautiful place and then staying there and then being late getting to where he was supposed to be.
Yep.
And then he kept asking Voronwe about if he could tell him about Turgon, and Voronwe is like, no, I'm not going to tell you that. It's classified. I'm too heartbroken. And then he then tells the story about like his life of, going to the ships.
You don't want to hear about that Turgon guy. Let me tell you a story about a real bad guy by the name of Voronwe. Oh, what? That's my name. Yeah, let's get down to it.
It's me, that cool guy. So he talks about that, but then he talks about how he was actually on the ship for a long time, and then they got shipwrecked, and then he ended up back on the beach somehow, and
he got Moana'd. We talked about this.
And then
he was only there for like an hour before Tuor found him. We had that confirmed.
Yeah. And then he is now Tuor's tour guide.
It's my favorite thing ever.
And then they exchanged flower crowns.
Yes. BFFs forever. Procrastinators forever.
Yes.
Procrastinators unite maybe later.
Sometime.
So
next week, maybe?
Tomorrow, next week, yeah. So we last left Tuor and Voronwe hiding in the mountains. Remember, they have to kind of hug that arid Wethrin mountain range because the nice flat land that would be easier to travel in, called the Falas, was being completely spied on, scouted out by orcs because Morgoth was afraid that Círdan would, be helping out, or if the Valar were to come, they would come through Círdan, and the Falas are near Círdan. So can't go through there, the nice flat area that would be nice to go through. So they're kind of hugging in the mountains and using that for cover, basically, which makes sense. So they're going to continue on their quest despite their epic backstories. And honestly, this part of their journey is unremarkable. It just says that they were able to pass by pretty much unnoticed because the, quote, shadow of Ulmo was upon Tuor. So he's got...
It's like the montage.
Cloud following him. Yes.
It's the
It is a very
montage of the
montage
map.
scene right
It's like, oh, let's start on our journey. And then it suddenly goes to a map. And then it's like them traveling. So we don't have to go through the boring parts.
now. Mm-hmm. Well, Voronwe, of course, is leading the way. And while Tuor is following pretty much blindly, he does think that the direction that they're going in is different than what he expected. Remember that in Balerion at the time, if you were in the north, Morgoth, who is in the northiest north, was sure to make your life miserable because that's, he was eventually trying to take over everything. So he's like, I'm in the north, and I'm going to slowly spread my way down south. So he is currently making people's life in the north miserable. The only people that seemed to be somewhat out of his reach were to the south, and even then, they still got bothered at times. So the vast majority of the people speculating where Turgon and his hidden city were just assumed that he would be towards the south. Like, we haven't heard of him. No sign has been, he hasn't been found out yet. He must be hiding somewhere in the south where we haven't, been, or where Morgoth hasn't been. So if Turgon was in the north, wouldn't someone have found him by now? But they're not heading north, or they're not heading south. Voronwe is continuing further east. So Tuor's a little suspicious. He's like, wait a minute. I thought, okay, like either by trust in Voronwe or the fact that he has little choice in the matter, Tuor just follows him.
My Google Maps is saying that we have to make a U-turn. Are you sure that we are going the right way? It says U-turn at earliest convenience.
It said to take not a right, it said to bear right. Are you sure that we did that right?
There's a big...
See what I did there?
We should turn right. It's like the Muppet movie where he's like, turn left at the fork of the road. And then there's an actual fork in the road. It's like, well, look at that.
Yes. Now, I don't remember if you remember from the Silmarillion, but there was a point where there was a really bad winter, like remarkably bad. Like all the wild things are actually pretty bad during this time period. But this terrible winter was like, you know what? Let's just make everyone even more miserable. So this is literally called the Fell Winter. And it is like the worst winter of the age. And it is at this time, of course, that Voronwe and Tuor are traveling.
Oh, of course. It reminds me of that part in Hercules where they were like comparing all the disasters that were happening. They're like, was that before or
no,
after
that was
the
after the flood.
Yeah. The earthquake or the fires. Don't even get me started.
On the crime rate.
Yeah.
So
quote, yeah, I remember that
they're really
part of the summer
it is miserable.
Of miserable winter.
Quote, despite the shelter of the hills, the winds were strong and bitter, and soon the snow lay deep upon the heights, or whirled through the passes, and fell upon the woods, ere the full shedding of their withered leaves.
Ugh, cold. Ugh.
Cold. Now, and I don't know why, but like when it's that little like time in between summer and it's just starting to be autumn, that cold wind in contrast is real cold. Like just it just takes you by surprise.
Yes.
Now, I didn't realize this, but did you know that they actually have cool names for the months of the year?
Like
they're
in their
Quenya
language
names and Sindarin names. Yes.
Oh.
I'll post where I found these. I always find it on my number one Till Death Do Us Part Encyclopedia of Arda. I should get a freaking commission for how much I talk about that. Just saying. But I looked up our birthdays. And so the month that I was born is March. And it is called, where is it? Oh, I was looking up because they had this cool thing where you can put in a date and then it will say like if anything happened in the books or, in the timeline of things. If anything, nothing happened on our birthdays, which is kind of boring. I know. But the month of March is called Sulime.
Sulime.
Mm-hmm. And the month of July, which is Abby's birthday, is, I'm going to try, Kirmie.
Oh.
Mm-hmm.
Kirmie. Fancy.
Yes. So fancy. And actually, I was going to look up what those names meant, but I forgot. So I'm just going to look it up real quick. Suleme. Oh, that's actually real cool. The month of winds is the year or the month I was born.
You know what?
It's weird
true.
because
we get so many windstorms during that month in March, at least where I live.
So what's funny is that it's not exactly like March equals Suleme. It's like they do have a 30-day month, but it's like the 21st to the 22nd. So it's like not quite like 1 to 30. So like 21st of February to March 22nd is Suleme.
Kind of like the like astrological signs don't really do like individual months,
right?
It's like the weeks out of the year kind of thing.
Yeah, like the zodiac calendar. So Kirmie, oh, I was right. Oh, I'm so proud of myself. Means something to do with harvest.
Oh, boring.
Or like no, possibly like the cutting of hay. No. So something along that line. So if you want to look it up, it's actually kind of cool. But the month that Tuor and Voronwe are traveling in, which is coming to an end, is called Narquelie in Kenya, which means fire fading, which is the coolest term I've ever heard for the season of fall or autumn. I mean, fire fading. So freaking cool. But this corresponds to our September-October area, which I feel is very appropriate. The month that is just starting as they are traveling, though, is called, so like it's that month is coming to an end. The fire fading is coming to an end. And this new month is called Hisame, which is Quenya for the misty month, which super accurate. As it corresponds to our October-November time. Yeah, October-November, very misty. So
at least where we live.
I just thought that was so cool. I didn't quite put that together that of course they would have their own months of the year and cool names for all the things. So yeah, if I will maybe do a little post for all the different things because
I wonder if they sell a calendar.
All right. Oh, they have to. What's give on? Oh, I was going to look up your kids' birthdays. It's February, right? No, January. It's so close to February that I forget.
Well, isn't would Lizzie be Narquelie or Hisime?
So, technically she is Narquelie. She is the fire fading.
Cool.
So your kids are I can do it. Nenime, which means watery.
Watery. Cool.
January, end of January to February.
Okay. And then what's the beginning of June?
I was trying to remember all of you have so many kids. I'm sorry. I love your children. I don't even remember all my nieces and nephews. That took years. And I don't even remember all the dates. Okay. Ooh, this one's tricky. Okay. Narie, which means the time of heat or sun.
Whoa. I mean, it's true.
And he's literally your son.
Yes. I call him my summer sunshine boy. So, yes.
Aw, so yeah, that is very appropriate then. Aw, Nate's birthday is in May, and his is the blossom month.
Oh, that's adorable. Friends, when you're listening, go find your birthdays and have fun figuring out all your birthday months. And if anything cool happened,
I will post the link.
If anything cool happened on your birthdays in the books, please let us know.
Oh, that was the other thing I did. Hold on, I have to look this up now because I think Kylie had a cool date and we didn't, and I was pissed. Of course she did. She doesn't even care. Oh, it wasn't her birthday. Whose was it?
You don't even go to the
It was
school.
someone else that was like, I don't even care. Yes. Anyways.
She doesn't even go here.
So, quote, thus, though they set out before the middle of Narquelier, the autumn, the Hissime came in with biting frost, even as they drew nigh to the source of Narog.
Which is rare for that early in the year, I gotta say.
Right. Exactly. Hence the fell winter. Remember, Narog is one of the main rivers in Beleriand. It is literally where Nargothrond got its name. But the sources of Narog is a little different. It refers to a specific place, one, in fact, we have been to before in the Silmarillion. Not sure if you remember it. Quote, there at the end of a weary night, in the gray of dawn, they halted, and Voronwe was dismayed, looking about him in grief and fear, where once the fair pool of Ivrin had lain in its great stone basin carved by falling waters, and all about it had been a tree-clad hollow under the hills. Now he saw a land defiled and desolate. The trees were burned or uprooted, and the stone edges of the pool were broken, so that the waters of Ivrin strayed and wrought a great barren marsh amid the ruin. All now was but a stream of frozen mire, and a reek of decay like a foul mist upon the ground.
Dang. Sounds lovely.
Mm-hmm.
Sounds gorgeous.
Mm-hmm. So, do you remember what happened here? Do you remember the pools of Ivrin, maybe? Or Ithel Ivrin? Does that sound familiar? Well, let me help jog your memory a little bit, because this was in the Silmarillion during Tuorin's story. So Tuorin and Gwyndor came to the pools of Ivrin after Tuorin accidentally killed Beleg, and he was all depressed and sad, and the water somehow healed him. I think you referred it literally as the happy water.
Yeah, yeah. Xanax water.
It is also... Yes. It is also linked to Findulis, the daughter of Orodreth, the sort of princess of Nargothrond, if you will, because Gwyndor thought she was so beautiful that he gave her the nickname Fealivrin, which means the gleam of the sun on the pools of Ivrin.
Whoa, that's a long name.
Mm-hmm. Anyways, this once beautiful place with the happy water has been destroyed. And do you remember who destroyed it?
I'm guessing the bad guy. Morgoth destroyed it.
There's lots of bad guys. Not the main bad guy, technically, no. So Voronwe says, quote, alas, has the evil come even here? Once far from the threat of Angband was this place, but ever the fingers of Morgoth grope further. Which makes it sound like Voronwe has been here before, but it isn't anywhere near Gondolin or on his like suicide mission road map that he was supposed to be on. So maybe they actually had traveled the same way when they were relocating from Vinyamar to Gondolin. Maybe, possibly.
Sorry, friends. I had to go see if my baby was okay, because he was like, Mom! Mom! To find out that he had gotten a pint of chocolate ice cream out of the freezer and was in the, he got a spoon, but we have a pocket door. I don't know if you guys know what that means. It means my door can slide into my wall, and then you don't see the door anymore, and you like can pull it in or out to close the door, but it's mostly open. But he had shoved, I have to still get it out, but he shoved a toy under the pocket door in the like track of it. And so now sometimes the pocket door gets stuck, like closed. So he was like stuck in the laundry room, and I just see his little hand under the door, and he's like, help. And he was totally fine. He was totally safe. It's like him just being in like a closet by him, like, with just clothes. But and then I was like,
Right.
oh, and I had to, open the door, and then I was like, oh, you have a whole tub of ice cream. And he's like, darn, she found me out. Anyway, I'm back.
It reminds me of the classic Ashley story of when I was a child, and I was left unattended because I had 4 older brothers that were probably running amok, and our Uncle Will found me in the kitchen at like 4 years old with the ham, like a big ham, with a butcher knife trying to stab the ham.
Your love of ham began so early.
That's my love of ham. He went for ice cream. I went for ham. I mean, you do you, man.
Oh, that's so funny. Anyway,
how I did not kill myself is a mystery.
Yes, the love of ham saved you.
So anyway, figured out who had an event in the Lord of the Rings that didn't even deserve it. It was Lizzie. Her birthday is when the Shire, or when the hobbits returned to the Shire after everything.
Oh, a good one.
Mm-hmm. Anyways, Tuor adds in, quote, "It is even as Ulmo spoke to me. The springs are poisoned and my power withdraws from the waters of this land." Like, oh yeah, Ulmo mentioned that there was some kind of issue with his service in this area. Like, he just kept dropping calls to people. This must be why the connection was broken here. Like, obviously, there's some kind of disturbance in the connections.
Yeah, it's too far out in the country. Doesn't get a lot of good service around here.
But Voronwe is kind of perturbed by this destruction of such a pretty place. He says, quote, "Yet a malice has been here with strength greater than that of orcs. Fear lingers in this place." Like, wait a minute, this is a lot for orcs to do. They aren't this crafty. And then he's like, I know, I'm going to put on my detective hat and figure out what really happened here. And yes, in my head, he full on gets out a Sherlock Holmes, what are they called? Deerstalker hats or whatever?
Yeah, yeah.
Or he gets out his handy dandy notebook and starts looking for Blue's Clues. Both scenarios work in my brain. I don't know how, but they do. Quote, "And he searched about the edges of the mire until suddenly he stood still and cried again, 'Yea, a great evil!' And he beckoned to Tuor, and Tuor coming saw a slot like a huge furrow that passed away southward, and at either side, now blurred, now sealed hard and clear by the frost, the marks of great clawed feet." Do you remember now who messed up this place?
I mean, would it have to be a dragon or a Balrog?
It's a dragon. But I like how he's like, "Look, Tuor, a clue. Do you see the clue?" Let's put on our thinking caps and think, who made this?
Yeah.
Let's write down this clue in our notebook.
Our handy dandy notebook. It's a giant crayon.
Notebook. Yeah.
He makes a cute little drawing of a dragon.
Quote, "See," said Voronwe, and his face was pale with dread and loathing. "Here, not long since, was the great worm of Angband, most fell of all the creatures of the enemy. Late already is our errand to Turgon. There was need of haste."
He's like, "We gotta go. We gotta leave.
We gotta go.
There's the dragon here."
But do you remember the name of the sassy dragon who is the main villain of Turin's story, in my opinion? Maybe Turin is the main villain of his own story. What do you think? But anyways, do you remember his name? Don't cheat and look at the outline.
I don't. Because the only name that I remember, I don't know if it's a dragon or a Balrog, but it's my favorite. It's the Moblung.
Oh.
Moblung.
He is an elf, and R.I.P. Moblung. He died trying to help.
That's my favorite. That's all I remember is Moblung.
It's Glog Glorung. You were close.
See, I was close.
You were close. Glorung. Now, the timelines of Tuor and Tor can get a little confusing, but just to kind of line up their timelines a little, Glorung had defiled the pools of Ivrin about the same time that Tuor was making his way to Vinumar through the Rainbow Cleft.
Ooh.
So this didn't happen too long ago. But somehow seeing that Morgoth's reach has gotten this far and that Glorung has destroyed the happy water pool, Voronwe was like, oh, hell no. We gotta go. We gotta get to Turgon. We got to do something about this because they will not mess up my pretty happy water pool. Justice must be served. But
I want
just as Voronwe is telling Tuor about his... Yes. But just as Voronwe is telling Tuor about this, they hear a sudden cry in the woods nearby.
A good cry, a sad cry, a scary cry.
Quote, and they stood still as gray stones listening. But the voice was a fair voice, though filled with grief, and it seemed that it called ever upon a name as one that searches for another who is lost. And as they waited, one came through the trees, and they saw that he was a tall man, armed, clad in black, with a long sword drawn. Let me give you another hint. Quote, and they wondered, for the blade of the sword was also black, but the edges shone bright and cold. Woe was graven in his face, and when he beheld the ruin of Ivrin, he cried aloud in grief, saying, Ivrin, fail Ivrin, Gwyndor and Beleg, here once I was healed, but now never shall I drink the draught of peace again. But I like that they remark on the sword so much, like, hey, cool sword. I don't care about that. Like, maybe look at the guy's face. Like, maybe he might have some resemblance to you, Tuor. I don't know. But they're like, huh, his sword's black. That's weird. But they probably haven't seen another human in, like, weeks. I don't know. I'd look at his face. Like, why is this guy randomly crying? What's he crying about? I'm so confused. Wait, that guy looks a little familiar. He kind of looks like my dad. But as fast as this random guy, who, yes, was Tuorin, appeared, he just as quickly disappeared. Quote, towards the north, as in one pursuit or on an errand of great haste, they heard him cry, Fail Ivrin, Findulas, until his voice died away in the woods. Like, yep, still crying the same name over and over again. Now, if we were to do one of those TV episodes where it shows you in the first few minutes of the episode a few scenes that just completely blow your mind, and then all of a sudden it like stops and it's like earlier that day or 24 hours earlier or something like that. Well, 24 hours earlier for Tuorin would have shown Nargothrond being attacked, Findulas, his girlfriend's putting it heavily, but he did feel protective over her. They were friends. They were like, there was vibes. Definitely on her part. He was kind of just dark and twisty. But Findulas getting captured and taken away along with many other citizens of Nargothrond, while Tuorin was stuck in a Glorung dragon trance where he couldn't move, but he could still hear Findulas crying, Tuorin, help me, save me! And then as soon as he got out of the trance, he starts chasing after Findulas, and here we are. Hence him being just calling her name over and over again. But, of course, Tuor and Voronwe know nothing of this. They don't know what has happened in Nargothrond, why Glorung has destroyed the happy water place, and most importantly, that this random guy screaming and crying in the woods is Tuor's own cousin. And that, sadly, is the closest that they will ever come to meeting. And I can't decide if they actually did have journeys together. They are so vastly different in their personalities. Would one bring the other one down or would one bring the other one up is the question that I would like to know. I'm curious what would happen. Maybe they'd even each other out. Who knows? So after Tuorin runs off and they can't hear him yelling anymore, I just imagine Voronwe and Tuor just like slowly looking at each other with fuzzle faces and being like, meh. And then they just go back to their journey. Like, because that's literally like, it's not talked about anymore after this. They're not like, I wonder what that guy was doing. Wonder if he found that Ivrin character he was talking, or Fail Ivrin that he was talking about, or Findulas. What's a Findulas? Nothing is talked about ever again. So Tuorin's gone. The pool, they're still looking at the pools of Ivrin all destroyed and smelling stinky of Glaurung. And somehow Turin's grief just seems to kind of cling to Voronwe and Tuor. So from that point on, their journey is just going to take a turn for the worse. Turin had that effect on people, though, which is kind of interesting. They should have like a calculator. Like, how long do you have to be in Turin's presence for him to ruin your life? Like, quote, "For all the land was filled now with a foreboding of evil. They slept little and uneasily, and as the day wore, it grew dark and a great snow fell, and with the night came a grinding frost. Thereafter, the snow and ice relented not at all, and for 5 months, the fell winter, long remembered, held the north in bonds." So this winter is going to last from basically the end of October to the end of March. And it's going to suck for everyone in Beleriand, but even more so for those people trying to travel anywhere, which makes you think, wouldn't it have been nice to have done this, I don't know, in this spring tour? Maybe let's think about not skipping and frolicking in the fields and picking all the wildflowers and getting on a schedule that Olma was trying to do for you, man. But whatever. Quote, "Now Tuor and Voronwe were tormented by the cold and feared to be revealed by the snow to hunting enemies or to fall into hidden dangers treacherously cloaked. 9 days they held on, ever slower and more painfully." I want what you call indoorsy. I like the snow if I can see it from like a distance, like from like inside my nice warm house, and I can just like watch it. I only know what I know about the snow, like in traveling in the snow, from 2 things. One of which is the 101 Dalmatians movie, of course, which can make you tired and hungry, and your tail is froze, and your nose is froze, and your ears are froze. But also, remember, those clever dogs had to hide their tracks in the snow because the tracks were easier to find in the snow. So they had to, get the branch and to, wipe them off. My other source of information is from my favorite podcast, the last podcast on the left, that they did about the Donner Party, which is really good. The Donner Party wasn't really good. The podcast about the Donner Party was really good. Let me clarify. But they actually go into detail a lot about why it was so hard. So they haven't had, during the winter, not hunting is harder. Any foraging is pretty much all done. So there's no like berries to pick around. There's no, food to eat along the way. Also, so you're like already tired from not having enough calories in your body, but it is very hard and exhausting just to walk in snow. And I don't think they did snowshoes at this time. I can't imagine Tuor wearing snowshoes. So, I mean, it just takes a lot of energy. So anyways, this journey is going to suck from now on. If you look at my little map, so they came from Nevrast on the left, and they're going along that mountain range. And you see Ivrin there and Narog that they've passed. And then you see that there's kind of a river that has like 3 fingers that are by the mountains. So those are the offshoots of the river Taglin, which kind of, I like the translation of it. It's boundary singer. Like, ooh. So they're going to cross those rivers, and then they're going to cross that other river called Glithui, which possibly translates to silvery. It's Glithui. It's so pretty. It's silvery and glittery. So it basically translates to silvery. And then they're going to come to that next river there. So they're like making their way across all these rivers. So the next river they have to cross is the Malduin, which possibly translates to like the gold river. So they have to cross the silvery to get to the gold, which is kind of poetic. Now, when they come to this last river, the Malduin, when they get to it, it is completely frozen black. Now, why they use just like not frozen solid, it is frozen black. Interesting choice of words. And for some reason, seeing this river frozen brings Tuor close to his breaking point. He's just like, I'm hitting my wall, Voronwe. And he says, quote, fell is this frost, and death draws near to me, if not to you, for it was long since that they had found any food in the wild, and the waybread was dwindling, and they were cold and weary. So Voronwe's response is I don't know, it's kind of funny to me. He has a little bit of an odd sense of humor. He's kind of, he's not a Debbie Downer, but he's just very pessimistic, realistic. He doesn't sugarcoat things. And he says, quote, ill is it to be trapped between the doom of the Valar and the malice of the enemy. Have I escaped the mouths of the sea, but to lie under the snow? Like, darned if we do, darned if we don't. Like, the Valar wants us to do this, but and they're kind of screwing us over. And then the Morgoth is like trying to kill us too. Everyone's trying to kill us. Like, but Tuor, he's a bit more of the optimist. Remember, he's the golden retriever. We've decided that is the spirit animal on the show. Can't tell us otherwise. And Voronwe is a sassy cat. We don't make the rules. That's just how it works. But so Tuor doesn't want to blame Morgoth or Ulmo. He has been following Voronwe long enough without questioning him, and he's kind of reached his limit. So he says, quote, how far is now to go? For at last, Voronwe, you must forego your secrecy with me. Do you lead me straight, and whither or where? For if I must spend my last strength, I would know to what that may avail. Like, I don't know how tired and, exhausted Tuor is. I've never been on a journey like this, but I totally get this just from like, I just want to know like how much of my reserves I need to make to leave behind. If there's only like 2 more days, maybe I could make it last. But, if there's like 20, I need to know where this is going. I need to know before I just give it my all. Just give this guy a clue, Voronwe. That's all he's asking. I'm not sure what you last heard. We had a technical difficulty. We talked about the mafia and we got kicked off. So someone's listening. We don't mean anything. We're just a podcast. We're just 2 girls who like to talk about nerdy things. Please don't hurt us. Anyways, we're both mothers. Is that?
Yeah. We have
families. So the last thing I was kind of talking about, and I'll just quote it again just to kind of get back into it, is Tuor is just reaching his breaking point. He is so tired. He is so done. And he doesn't know where he's going. And so he wants to ask Voronwe, says, quote, how far is now to go? For at last, Voronwe, you must forego your secrecy with me. Do you lead me straight? And whither? Like, and where? For if I must spend my last strength, I would know to what that may avail.
Yeah. I mean, that's me. I don't.
Yeah.
I want to know where we're going.
I'm not sure if you've heard like the hiking term. Oh, it's just a mile up the trail. Like it's just it's just around that corner. Like I'm a control freak, if you haven't noticed, and that does not work for me. That is one of the reasons why, like, I watch military movies and I'm like, I could never just blindly follow orders. I'd be like, no, I want to know why we're walking this way. I want to know why we're going this direction. How much longer are we going in this direction? Because I need to conserve and know mentally.
And also, like,
control tendency there.
I don't want to be lied to. Just tell me where we're going.
Yeah. So Voronwe says, quote, I have led you as straight as I safely might. Know then now that Turgon dwells still in the north of the land of the Eldar, though that is believed by few. Already we draw nigh to him. Yet there are many leagues still to go, even as a bird might fly. And for us, Sirion is yet to cross, and great evil maybe lies between. For we must come soon to the highway that ran of old down from the Minas, or the tower, of King Finrod to Nargothrond. There the servants of the enemy will walk and watch. In other words, Turgon actually is in the north, not the south like everyone else thinks. And that while we are close, we still do have to cross the river Sirion, which is the other main river in Beleriand. Plus, along Sirion is a major highway that a lot of people used to travel, especially because former King Finrod, R.I.P. Finrod, he was our man. He had that tower, Minas Tirith, that Sauron is later going to change to the Isle of Werewolves.
Such a rad name, I gotta say. Upgrade.
Oh, so rad. So because it's a major highway, no doubt lots of orcs would be spying on it. So Tuor says, quote, I counted myself the hardiest of men, and I have endured many winters woe in the mountains. But I had a cave at my back and fire then, and I doubt now my strength to go much further, thus hungry through the fell winter weather. But let us go on as far as we may before hope falls.
He still has that positive
really
energy.
Hard. Yep. But I guess we're in too deep now. Let's just keep going, I guess. I don't know.
I feel that way on hikes sometimes. Where I'm like, we're far enough. The kids are whining. I'm like, let's just keep going.
Yeah. And then realistic Voronwe says, quote, no other choice have we, unless it be to lay us down here and seek the snow sleep. Or we could just lay on the ground. Oh, the snow sleep. That I have never heard that term before, but I know exactly what that means, and that is terrifying to hear.
I mean,
we could just go to sleep and never wake up, right? Or I suppose we could just keep going. So things are not looking so good for Tuor and Voronwe. They are on their last spoons, as I like to use the terms. And that's where actually I'm going to leave you for today.
Oh no, you're going to leave me in a deserted Arctic wasteland with two poor boys that are like, well, if this is how we die, this is how we die.
Yep.
Oh, fun. Yay!
Yay! So as we journey through Middle-earth together, don't forget to join us off the air by following the Sisters of the Shire podcast on Instagram. There you'll see our posts or art or funny memes regarding, we try and make it relevant for what we're talking about that week or that area around that week's episodes. But some are just like, this is really cool or this is really funny and I wanted to share. It's just kind of our niche things that we like. And we just want to share it with the world. So feel free to say hi or leave us a comment. We're nice, we promise. Also want to give a special thank you to our current patrons. Dan, our loyal dwarf friend of the Shire, and Krishane and Tom, our esteemed elf friends of the Shire. Your support means the world to us, and we very much appreciate all of your support and your efforts to keep our podcast going. Now, I haven't explained our Patreon in a while, so I thought I'd just plug it in here. Just as a quick reminder, if you want to join our fellowship with a podcast and join Dan, Krishane, and Tom, we do have 3 different tiers to choose from, and let's see how long it takes you to figure out why I did what I did. So for just $3 a month, you can become an elf friend of the Shire. For $7 a month, you'll be welcomed as one of our esteemed dwarf friends of the Shire. And for $9 a month, you'll join the ranks of our valiant women friends of the Shire. Do you get it?
You get it? You get it?
Do you get it? Plus, as a token of our gratitude, we might even serenade you with a song. I mean, I'm not sure if that's a incentive for you or if you're like the person that hates being sung to at restaurants and like, no, I would actually pay you not to sing. You know? Just let us know.
You know what we should have done so also an incentive too is that our people who are on our Patreon have been on the podcast. We've done episodes with them.
Oh, yes.
We should have asked them what they thought about our songs for them.
Oh.
We didn't ask them. Darn it.
Well, Dan responded that he loved it, and he actually like increased his tier after hearing the song. I'm not sure how Krishane and Tom felt about it, but at least we got one person's feedback back. So, lastly, if you've enjoyed our adventures, please take a moment to leave us a rating and a review on your preferred podcast platform. We are on YouTube Music now. Yay! Because Google Podcast is coming soon, but your feedback helps us grow and reach more fellow travelers on this incredible journey that we've been going on. So we really appreciate it if you could just hit that 5-star. Don't mess with the 4 and the 3. Just go ahead to the 5. Let's just make it easy. Yeah. Keep it simple.
Simple. Well, Oakley, can you help me out? Can you say something?
Oh.
Okay,
we have a bit of world news. Okay, so in world news, the Czech Republic overtook Spain. They are now 13th. The Philippines overtook Switzerland and Greece. They are now 25th. And that's all I got.
Oh, well, that's cool anyway. World news is good news.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. What's Oakley going to say?
Oakley, come here. Say thank you.
Thank you.
Say thank you.
Thank you
for teaching me today.
Good job, Oakley.
Thank you for teaching us today.
You're welcome. We'll get there one day, Oakley. You'll listen to these and be like, I sounded so little. Well, anyway. Until next week, I've been Ashley.
And I've been Abby. And thank you for joining us, even though we had technical difficulties. But we are so glad you're here. And we hope that you'll join us next time. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for teaching me a day.
Yay!